What's up, everyone? Welcome to the June 30th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at MlB DFS. And as a reminder, use the code AWESOMO when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. You'll receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100 on that first deposit. You'll also receive one free month of Stokastic plus Platinum. We have a 5-game MLB slate tonight on FanDuel. It starts at 7:05 Eastern, so does not include the first two games that are on the DraftKings slate. As usual, we're going to take a look at 3 of the top tournament stacks and 3 of the top tournament pitchers using the top stacks tool and the top pitchers tool on the Stokastic.com website. Starting with the top 3 stacks, number 3, the Los Angeles Dodgers have a difficult matchup tonight against Joe Musgrove. Musgrove has a 3.15 xFIP this year. He struck out 24.5% of hitters, but the Dodgers are one of the better offenses in baseball. 110 WRC plus and a 161 ISO on their active roster. They're only projected for 6% ownership with an 8% chance of being the top scoring stack. Number 2, the Seattle Mariners are taking on Adrian Martinez. He does not have much major league experience at all. At AAA this year, he struck out 26.5% of hitters with a 4.63 xFIP. He is not a heralded prospect. He's 25 and a half years old. He is basically just filler for the Oakland Athletics as they sleepwalk through an awful season. So it sets up as a pretty good spot for the Mariners. One thing we will have to keep an eye on is that we know J.P. Crawford, Jesse Winker, and Julio Rodriguez are all appealing suspensions. Don't know when those appeals will be heard, when the suspensions will be official. So obviously keep an eye on the Mariners lineup because one of these days we're going to get a really bad Seattle lineup. But assuming that Crawford, Rodriguez, and Winker are all in the lineup, there is plenty of power upside here. The Mariners are projected for 7% ownership with a 9% chance of being the top scoring stack. And number 1, the Chicago Cubs, projected for a very healthy 15% aggregate ownership, but with a 16% chance of being the top scoring stack and also a 21% chance of being the top value stack tonight against Graham Ashcroft. Ashcroft has done a good job so far in his limited major league time in limiting power, limiting production. He throws hard, averages about 97 miles per hour on his fastball, but he hasn't missed a lot of bats. He only struck out about 20% of hitters at AAA this year. He has a 15.8% strikeout percentage in the majors, though he does have a 3.58 xFIP. Wind is blowing out tonight in Wrigley. It's also supposed to be pretty warm, so favorable hitting conditions for the Cubs, who have a 108 WRC plus and 157 ISO on their active roster. Now looking at the top 3 tournament pitchers, number 3, Adrian Houser, 4% projected ownership, 9% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. He's $8,400 and taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Houser has thrown over 100 pitches in each of his last 2 starts, so we don't have the same sort of workload concerns about him that we've had in the past. He has only struck out 17.6% of hitters this year, but he has a decent 4.12 xFIP. He typically avoids hard contact, and he does have a favorable matchup against the Pirates. Number 2, other side of that game, JT Brubaker, $8,800 price tag, projected for 7% ownership with a 13% chance of being the top scoring pitcher and a 10% chance of being the top value pitcher. He's taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers do have power in their lineup, and they've been slightly above average with a 103 WRC plus, but they also have about a 23% strikeout percentage on their active roster, 23.5%. Brubaker has struck out 22% of hitters with a 4.23 xFIP so far this season. And number 1, Joe Musgrove, projected for 19% ownership in his very difficult matchup against the Los Angeles Dodgers. He has struck out 24.5% of hitters with a 3.15 xFIP this year. He has a 16% chance of being the top scoring pitcher, only a 6% chance of being the top value pitcher. He's $11,100, but the reason I'm mentioning him here, even though he's a little bit overowned in terms of ownership projection versus top pitcher projection, is that there's really 2 top-tier pitchers on this slate, Musgrove and Logan Gilbert. Gilbert is $700 less expensive, has a much better matchup against the Oakland Athletics, but Gilbert has about a 17% chance of being the top pitcher, according to our top pitchers tool. Musgrove's at 16%, but Gilbert has a 56% projected ownership percentage compared to 19%, 18 or 19% for Musgrove. So the disparity between those two is a lot wider than it probably should be. And then every other pitcher on this slate is just not in the same talent level. So obviously you can go to some of these other less expensive pitchers, but between Gilbert and Musgrove at the top, we are projecting Musgrove to get less ownership than he deserves relative to Gilbert, despite the tough matchup against the Dodgers. So to recap, the top 3 tournament stacks: number 3, the Los Angeles Dodgers; number 2, the Seattle Mariners; number 1, the Chicago Cubs; and the top 3 tournament pitchers: number 3, Adrian Houser; number 2, JT Brubaker; and number 1, Joe Musgrove.